All right, so as we continuously scale our budgets for all of our offers, there are a couple different levers that we found have been like ultra effective. Two primarily I want to talk about today. So the first one is related to messaging and more specifically in-market messaging. And then the second one is optimizing data. And in this case, I'm going to be talking about pixel conditioning and then how to leverage custom conversions properly. So I'm going to start with messaging. By the way, if you are running an offer or you're running any sort of ads, like this video, I promise you will be one of the most valuable videos you've watched because I'm going to go through everything. But I'm also not like optimizing this for retention or any sort of YouTube metrics, like because I actually want to cover all the topics. So I'm going to create this like I would create a training for one of my private clients. So if you've got the attention span, watch this all the way through. But let's dive right in, and I'm going to screen share my iPad here. So there are a couple of things that go into this. The first one, I'm going to talk about messaging. So there's a couple different types of messaging you can do. So the first one is visual. You basically want to have visual hooks in any of your ads. Now, there's a couple different types of ads you can run. You can be running image ads, you can be running video ads, and then you can do vertical, horizontal, different layout styles. And then also within the ad, you can obviously have a bunch of different things. So you have like what are called banner ads. These are generally going to be just like a direct offer with some sort of relevant visual in the background. You can do video ads where it's talking head. You can do screen share style like I'm doing right now for this video. But essentially for visual, there are a couple elements you want to have in place. So the first one is location, right? So this is a really helpful one. If you're trying to market to people who want to make money online, then you're going to optimize for a location that makes you look wealthy. For example, the high-rise background is a very common one for like gurus, right? If you're trying to, again, go for people that want to make money, a nice car or a nice watch, right? So referencing some sort of visual social proof. And then if you're trying to go for a more specific market, right, not people that just want an outcome necessarily, but people that are sort of what we call in market, people that are actively involved in something, you can use visuals that only they will recognize. And so they're going to be more curious about. So for example, whenever I see an ad where someone's displaying an ads manager, I'm always going to take a little bit more time to watch through the hook and see what the person's talking about. Because I'm like, oh, I'm in the ads manager a lot. This is probably more relevant to me. Now, once you obviously have your visual side down, the next thing that you need to worry about is obviously your verbal or text-based call out. And there's generally two ways to do this. So the more common one that I see most people do is what's called a blunt call out. So especially if you're in like the agency space, you're going to see a lot of like realtors. You're going to want to hear this. Realtors, listen up. And then they'll get more specific. So they'll also be like realtors doing over 7 transactions a month. This is for you, right? And we'll still do some of these, right? Blunt callouts are good because there's no way it misses your target audience, right? It's very explicit in who you speak to. By the way, in terms of messaging, one thing to be aware of, it's not just who you're speaking to because you want to resonate with them. It's also you're telling Facebook who to put you in front of, right? So when you're running meta ads, Facebook and Instagram, uh, most of the targeting is done by the platform, right? They've got over 52,000 actively updating data points on every single user, right? They're a better marketer than you or I ever will be. And so they know how to put it in front of that person. They also have actively updating life events, which is important to remember because I'm going to bring this up in a second. What blunt callouts do is it's like very clear, like, hey, I know exactly who I'm speaking to. But one thing I don't like about it is people often don't identify just within their label. So let me give you an example. When people will call out, hey, 7-figure business owners, right? That would technically apply because we've got businesses doing over 7 figures a year, right? But oftentimes I'll scroll right past that. Why? Because I know it's an ad immediately from that blunt call out. And see, so even though they're telling me, hey, this is relevant to you, right? I'm calling out, business owners, businesses that are doing over 7 figures a year, because I have no clue what they're talking about yet. Often I'll scroll right past that. And so this is why we've really leaned into what we call conditional, right? Conditional hooks, conditional messaging, where we're speaking to what's actively going on for that person, right? And so what this looks like is instead of trying to do a blunt call out and saying, for example, people. Let's say you're doing life insurance. People with a family, looking to protect their kids, right? It's a super blunt call out, but a lot of times people aren't identifying as like, oh, I'm a person with a family who wants to protect their kids, right? That's not like a thing that's consciously going through their head. Instead, what you do is you would do a conditional hook, something that they're experiencing. So, for example, look, you've raised now 3 kids, right? You've taken great care of them. They've gone to a good school. You've invested in their education, and you're proud of who they're growing up to be. But you also know that as you continue to grow older, you're not always going to be able to support them financially, right? Okay, what's that going to resonate with? The only people that are going to watch that are people that are like, hey, I've got kids who I care about because I'm taking care of them, who are also now you're introducing the awareness of like, and I am getting older and I want to be able to support them financially. Then maybe you're going to drop life insurance. Another example, let's say you're talking to realtors or you're doing an agency related market, right? Instead of saying, realtors doing over X transactions per month, right? You might say, look, you're already getting sales. People, you've built a really good sphere and you consistently get referrals, but you're also aware of the fact that the top realtors in every single market have a consistent A to Z marketing system they plug in that allows them to get in front of qualified homeowners whenever they want and whenever they need, right? Okay, that's again it's going to be situation based. You're only going to be speaking to people that are actually going through that condition, and as a result of that, they're more likely to stay and watch. A hook that got me recently was about scaling ad spend, right? And so I've scrolled past probably a million, not a million, but I've scrolled past dozens and dozens of ads that call out, hey, businesses doing over 7 figures a year, businesses doing over 100K a month. But then I got an ad that was talking about, look, your ads are already profitable, but you understand that as you scale them, your strategy needs to change. Like, okay, this was relevant to me. And so I kept watching. This was one of the offers I ended up actually booking into, was because they were talking about scaling spend. Notice they didn't say anything about 7 figure business owners or people that run agencies or anything like that. But what they did is they spoke to a condition that was relevant to me, right? Which is scaling spend. And because they spoke to that condition, guess who doesn't deal with scaling spend? Businesses doing really below 30K a month, right? So they're only going to be speaking to and resonating with people that do over X amount per month, which means that they're going to naturally get in front of those people. And those people that do resonate with it are way more likely to watch. I don't opt into a lot of cold traffic funnels unless I'm trying to see what their funnel looks like. But as a result of it speaking directly to my situation, I did. And so that's why conditional messaging is so powerful. And we're going to get into what types of people you want to message to. But that's the first sort of thing I want you to solidify is like start speaking to those people's conditions and using the visual hook instead of just relying on these blunt call out hooks. So the next thing you want to be aware of is who you're actually speaking to in terms of conditions. So there are going to be a couple different conditions you can speak to. There's different ways of breaking down levels of awareness. You probably know Eugene Schwartz, but this is a much simpler one that I think really sums it up well. And you're really going to be speaking to one market until you start scaling spend heavily. So the first one is what we call in market, right? By the way, Jeremy Haynes taught me this concept, super, super valuable. And if you don't know Jeremy, go check him out. Most of you probably do. But people that are in market want your thing, right? They're actively looking for it. And it's generally going to be like 3 to 4% of your overall target market. But they're actively searching. And the thing you got to keep in mind is it's constantly refreshing. So there's more people coming into the, hey, I'm in market, I'm looking for this thing, right? And so an example of this, let's just use the realtor one again, is it would be realtors who are actively looking to add marketing, that actively want Facebook ads for their business, right? It's not going to be an enormous number of them because there's not going to be a massive, massive volume compared to the overall number of realtors. A lot of realtors think Facebook ads are a scam. But if you're going to be running Facebook ads for realtors, what a lot of people do is they'll call out, hey, have you been burned by agencies in the past? Or they'll lead with like a crazy guarantee, or this is only paid per appointment. And so what they're doing is they're speaking to a market of people who like want a 100,000% guarantee, which is also generally your lower quality people. And then also people that need to be convinced on marketing works. They're like, the reason they're opting in is because they're like, this sounds too good to be true, but sure, let's see if they actually offer what they're promising in the app, right? And so that's why instead of messaging to people that need like this huge promise, and need this massive guarantee, which is what most agencies will end up doing. It's like, oh, I get cheap costs. Right? I want to message to people that are actively looking for it. And so I'm going to talk about very, very explicitly what we do. We leverage Facebook ads because Facebook ads are powerful in this, and this way. Right. And as a result of that, we get people who want our stuff. Now, unaware is very expensive. If you look at guys like Russell Brunson for the internet marketing space, he takes like unaware people and he brings them into the market. And so you'll notice when he runs like his massive webinar events, he's not getting like a 6, 10x ROAS on his ad spend. He's getting like a 2 or 3x, but they just spend an enormous amount. What he does is he brings people into the market, and then we basically feed off of, if you're in the internet marketing space, you feed off of like the guys Russell Brunson brings in. For 99.99% of you watching, unaware is not something you should ever be dealing with. You're going to want to focus on in market, the people that want your stuff now, and then needs convinced. Just to hammer home this point, I want to give you a little bit of an analogy. So one of my friends, they run a YouTube ads agency for realtors, which is one of the reasons I'm probably using a lot of realtor examples here. And essentially, they do cold outreach. So they reach out to guys that are already on YouTube, right? Realtors that already have YouTube channels. And they basically pitch them on, hey, you're already on YouTube. Would you like a free YouTube audit? And then they kind of pitch YouTube ads as a very scalable way for them to get appointments. So YouTube ads as opposed to like Facebook ads. And they were like, dude, we have such a high booking, such a high close rate. And they're asking like, hey, but whenever we try and scale off of, we use platforms like Appify to scrape Zillow. Whenever we try and do that, like the response is so much worse. Like when I explained this to them, it clicked really hard. I was like, look, what is the situation of the people you're messaging to? They are on YouTube. These are realtors that are taking time out of their day to record videos because they want YouTube to work. They believe YouTube works. And they're literally putting time and effort in because they're like, I believe in this platform. I believe in the system. Those are the definition of in-market people because they desperately want YouTube to work. And so when you reach out to them, you cold outreach to them, and they see your stuff, it's super relevant. Right? They already have a YouTube channel. So when you pitch, hey, YouTube is the best way to do it because of demographic targeting, you can get super specific on who you're getting in front of, and you can build more trust. They already believe all those things. And so the number of people that book is significantly higher. And then also the number of people that close are significantly higher. So in market doesn't just apply to ads. Ads is just the most scalable way of doing this. But it also applies to like, hey, where do you reach out to people on? Right? If you reach out to people in a Facebook group for contractors, you're going to get a huge number of people that aren't interested, right? But if you go and you look on the ads manager and you find contractors who are already running ads, and then you reach out to them, well, clearly they think ads work because they're spending money on it to make Facebook ads work, or at least they hope it works, right? And so they're already in market for Facebook ads because there's so many beliefs that have to be shifted to get someone to believe advertising works in the first place. Like, why would you go for someone that you need to convince advertising works, then you need to convince Facebook is the best thing, and then you need to convince on your thing, when you can just go to people that already believe advertising works, already believe Facebook works, and now you just need to convince them on your version of that system. So that's the whole point of doing in-market messaging, and the best way to get in front of those, right? You can't do this with a blunt call out, right? What are you going to say? Contractors who believe Facebook ads work, realtors who believe in YouTube, right? Instead, you're going to speak to conditions, right? So an example of a conditional hook here would be like, look, you know that long form content is the thing that's gonna actually convert serious home buyers because they do their research first. But the problem is you're not getting enough views on your YouTube videos to see any sort of significant return. Okay, now you're going to get obviously realtors that believe in YouTube, right? That know the value of long form. Then you can pitch them on your way of doing it with YouTube ads, right? So that's an example of an in-market hook, just so you have an idea of that. I'll go deeper on this in a second, but let me now go into optimization for data. All right, so important before we do optimization, obviously make sure your messaging is dialed, because what we're doing now is we're telling Facebook and Meta who to optimize for more of, but we can't attract the people we want to optimize for more of unless we have our messaging on point. So first things first, real quick recap of how the pixel works. Even if you already understand this, bear with me. Essentially, the way the pixel works is you can't say, hey, Mr. Zuckerberg, I love these guys. These guys kind of suck. Just send me more of these and don't send me these. You can't do that. All you can do is think of it as you can feed a dog a treat, right? You can tell it, good job, right? Do more of this. And the way you do that is sending back events. So you have what are called standard events, and standard events are going to be things that Facebook already knows what they are. So for example, a lead, which is submission of info, a booking, which is someone who schedules a call, or a purchase, someone who buys on the landing page, right? And Meta has its own way of sort of optimizing these. If you can, if it is a standard event, send it back as a standard event, because Facebook, when you say, hey, this was a lead, Facebook understands more conceptually what a lead is, right? But another cool tool you can start to utilize that a lot of people don't is you can utilize what's called custom events. So custom events are a little bit different because Facebook has no clue what that custom event is, to be honest. And there's probably some AI in the background that reads it and can kind of quantify it. But these are basically not standard events Facebook lets you optimize for. And so what you're doing is, the way I want you to think about this is you can optimize for specific things on the back end, right? So for example, qualified lead. Let's say your salesperson talks to someone and they either didn't buy, but they were, they had the money. They're in follow-up or they close. Those would generally be people that your salespeople want to talk to more of, right? People that have the money and are, quote unquote, qualified to buy your thing, right? And so what you can do is you can have the cool thing about a custom event is, instead of it being triggered by an action from the customer, for example, submitting a form, or for example, booking a call, or example, purchasing, where you have like no involvement, it's just done by the customer, right? A custom event is sent back afterwards, after a salesperson has been able to talk to them, right? So qualified lead, this is only after they've talked to a human, they've had a full conversation, they've been financially qualified. It's like, now this person is qualified. Cool. I'm going to send that back to this custom event. And even though Facebook doesn't necessarily know, what a qualified lead is, once you build that data set, you add all the people that you want to get more of on the phone into that data set, because it's going to optimize for more of those people. You do the same thing, could be for paid in full. So anyone who paid in full without financing, you add those to a paid in full custom event. And while initially you're going to have to optimize for one of these, right? These are what are called more top of funnel events, right? An opt-in or a booking, right? You really don't know who that is. You can just do kind of your best gauge. Custom events are very deep in funnel events, right? So paid in full, right? You're optimizing for the main thing we want, which is people that buy and pay the full amount up front, right? Or you're optimizing for qualified leads because you want more qualified leads coming through. So these are deeper in funnel events. And what you do is, when you launch your first campaign, you may be optimizing for bookings, right? But then you feed the bookings that are actually good into this qualified lead. And then when you launch your next campaign, right, now you're going to optimize for more qualified leads instead of just more bookings. So hopefully that makes sense in terms of how to leverage those conversions and how to send back those events. That's super powerful in terms of being able to, based on your past data, optimize for more of the right people going forward. Now, the reason standard events and custom events are important is because they're what tells Facebook to continue to do something. So when you launch your ad at first, right, Facebook's going to go into audience 1, and it's going to try and, basically get in front of these people, show the ad. And if none of these events fire, Facebook doesn't get a signal. What it's going to do is it's going to be like, oh, nobody there is interested. So let's jump to bucket 2, right? Bucket 2, let's say that you then start sending back the booking event, right? What Facebook's going to do is it's going to be like, oh, we're getting the standard event firing. This is really good. It's going to do a light test on bucket 3 and bucket 4, right, to see if it's able to get some more, a higher number of people coming through. But for the most part, it's going to now start trying to optimize for 2, right? And it's going to really milk that one bucket. Now, that's a good thing if you're optimizing, for example, you have qualifications on your booking or you're optimizing for qualified leads because you're optimizing for more of the right people, right? But what's really important is you only let people you want more of send back to the pixel. That is huge. A lot of people come to me and they're like, well, I want more qualified people, but I want to optimize for throughput. And they have this misconception that, let's say, um, they imagine, hey, I'm going to get 150 people who want to come through either way, and only 50 of them will be qualified. Well, if I have less qualifications, then I will get 150 pieces of contact information and I will still get 50 qualified pieces of contact information. And the reason they're thinking this is, well, of another 100 people I can put into a long-term follow-up sequence, right? But the issue is, you got to keep this in mind, Facebook will optimize for the cheapest conversion, right? The cheapest event that you allow. And so if you let through junk volume, and even though you might get 150 people, maybe only 10 of these people will actually be qualified. Versus if you have 150 interested people that hit your page, but then you have qualifications, you might only get 50 people that are allowed through, right, that send back to the pixel, but all 50 of those will meet your qualification criteria. So even though you're like, oh, well, why would I say no to getting these people? Let's at least collect their contact information. It's like, no, you need to not let those people go to the pixel, because then you're going to optimize for more junk volume, which means you're going to get more junk leads instead of an equal mix of qualified and junk leads. And I'm going to show you how you can still capture all of these while only optimizing for these in a moment. So stick around for that. But as a result of that, that is done on your form. And so I'm going to show you, here's the proven and most effective form structure. You need 2 things. So first question is an easy to answer one. And what you're going to do is you're going to categorize them, right? So when these people come in, you're going to get an easy, click basically a radio button option. So I'll give you an example of this. Let's say it's an investment offer, right? You're offering people help with investing in real estate. What you're going to do is you're going to say, hey, how many properties do you currently own? And you'll have the selection 0, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 10, 10 plus, right? And the reason you're asking this question first is, 1, it's an easy one to answer. It's not too aggressive. But 2, what you can start doing is you can optimize your marketing, your pre-nurturing, and your sales process around that person. Because the way you sell someone who has 0 homes, more of a biz op sale, introducing them to investing in properties, is very different than someone who has 2 or 5 or 10, right? Because they've already done this before. They already know real estate investing works, right? So this is a super powerful question. It gets the foot in the door. It kind of tells your salespeople what direction to go, and you can have automatic your like pre-call sequence with nurturing videos, emails, etc. All can be optimized depending on the person. So you have different sequences depending on who's coming through. This is always your first question. The next one is what Jeremy calls a brokey bait. I call it like a qualifier bait because that's exactly what it is. Basically, you're throwing out a question that's going to determine, is this someone who's going to be able to afford my program, right? And so this could be something like, hey, assuming we get on the call and you like the program, are you willing and able? Our program on average costs $6,000. Are you willing and able to invest that? Do you have that liquid, or would you be able to get access to that via financing? Overview of the question, right? And then you'd have 3 options. Yes, I have that liquid. Yes, I could get approved for financing, or no, that's too expensive, right? And based on how they answer that, you're going to either let them through if they can afford it, or not let them through if they can't, right? What you're doing is you're getting people that are conceptually open to the idea of investing instead of just curious, right? This is huge because this is going to determine who gets sent back to the pixel here. After that, if there's a really important condition for pre-marketing, you can add an extra question or 2 here, and then it's just contact details. You don't want to artificially increase your cost by adding too many questions. You have 2 options here though, and I'm going to show you actually how this looks on a real funnel. All right, so we're going to have our form here, right? And I'll show you, are you a contractor or service-based business? First one, yes, right? You could also do what type of service do you do? Then this is X amount. And, are you willing and able to invest if this makes sense? Yes. Then we're going to have your name. Boom. Do test at gmail.com. And number here. Now, one thing I want you to notice is the name of the calendar, demo calendar, right? And they can book in. Now I'm going to re-go through this, and I'm going to say, are you a contractor or service-based business? No. No. Boom. Boom. Um, cool. Then we're going to go and click this here. What I want you to notice is it goes to discovery calendar, right? And so both times they can book, but they are booking on different calendars, and the redirect from this is completely different too. And so what this essentially means is that even though you're able to get both people to book in, you're not missing out on any of those leads. Only one of those pages is pixeled, right? Only the demo calendar, when they book their appointment and then submit it, and they get redirected to the demo thank you page, that fires a standard event back for a booking, right? But if they go on the discovery one and they book in, that's not going to fire back a booking. Now, one thing to be aware of, your cost is going to be artificially increased because on how many, how much it costs for a booking, right? Because Facebook is only, let's say you have 14 booked from the demo and 7 booked from the discovery, right? Facebook is only going to show and track 14 calendar events, right? They're like, oh, we only have 14 bookings. Let's say you spent $1,000, right? They're basically saying, hey, in $1,000, you got 14 bookings. Right? Well, if you got 7 on the discovery calendar, right, then you had 21 total bookings, right? But 7 didn't get fired back to Facebook, right? So we know that, first of all, those 7 are probably going to be less likely to be qualified. Some might convert, right? We know the 14 are qualified. Those report back to Facebook. But the reason we're doing that, even though your data tracking is technically wrong and it's inflating your cost per booking, what we're doing is we're saying, Facebook, this is the lowest minimum threshold of people we will let through, right? And so if we gave it a lower threshold, Facebook's going to get you worse quality people because worse quality people are cheaper for Facebook, right? But if you say this is the lowest possible we're letting through, Facebook will get you the cheapest possible for that minimum threshold. So remember, the floor you set for Facebook is what it will match every single time. And that's what I mean when I say your options are either don't collect that data, you could just send them to a page that says, sorry, this is not for you. Or you can collect it, but not send it back as an actual event. So now to actually give you action steps, so you're not just getting theory, let me run through the 2 steps that you should follow in terms of your current funnel, what you should review, and how you can improve the quality of your ads. So first things first, right? I want you to go and I want you to map out, right, who is ideal, right? And then I want you to heavily brainstorm what are the conditions that person has, right? Do they have a family? What do they do in their free time? How many hours a week are they working? How do they view themselves? What are common events that they're going through? For example, for a wealthier business owner, scaling ad spend, managing client volume on the back end, volume of creatives, right? Being able to source good quality salespeople, things like that are all things that are relevant to bigger businesses. So you speak to those topics and those conditions, right? And I want you to come up with those conditions, and then I want you to make 10 to 15 in market, right? Speaking to those people's conditions, hooks, and then create full ads related to those, script those out, and run those in a CBO. So campaign, right? Set basically $10 per ad. So let's say you're running 15, do a minimum of $150 a day, right? Then you're going to run one ad set. So not ABO, but one ad set, and then throw all of your creatives here, boom, under that. Let Facebook pick which one will perform. I guarantee you that even though you may not have the lowest cost per booking, you will get way more qualified people with the end market messaging. You're going to get people who actually want your stuff. So your close rate goes way up, your show rate goes way up. And as a even though you might have more expensive bookings on the front end, not significantly, but more expensive, the metrics following that, what actually turns into money, will be significantly better. So that's the first thing, get your messaging dialed. Then second thing, right, what I want you to do is figure out what standard event do I want to optimize for. For most of the people that watch me, it'll probably be bookings, right? Then what I want you to do is set that booking on a thank you page, decide if you want to keep or not keep the people that are quote unquote not qualified. Then I want you to make your first question, which is going to be based around your pre-marketing. I break it into at least 2. So complete beginners versus people that have a little bit more experience, right? And then create question 2, which is going to be your qualification bait or your brokey bait, whatever you want to call it, to only basically segment who can actually afford your stuff. And then decide, do I want to still let the people that are quote unquote broke through and create a second calendar, second thank you page? Or do I just not even care about collecting their info and send them to this one page so that it'll start to send back the qualified numbers? I guarantee you, just one of these will transform your ads performance. One of my students actually just put in place. They just put in place just number 2 with the qualification questions and the brokey bait question and all of that, and their numbers like literally 2x overnight in terms of cutting their cost per acquisition in half, and then also their hit rate went way up. So huge lever here. If you do both of these, like these are like the 80-20 in terms of advertising, messaging, pixel conditioning. You get these 2 right, I guarantee you your ads will absolutely crush. That's about all for now on this video. If you guys like the style of video, which is way more raw, just like a straight lesson, let me know in the comments and I will make more like this. If this stuff is confusing to you, or you're just running a bigger business and you want to implement this stuff because you know it's going to be a huge lever for you, but you don't want to take the time to actually go and do it yourself, then I'm going to have a calendar linked below here. You can book on to speak with me. I work with a lot of big companies. I've also helped people scale up their agencies. So if you're looking to get this put in place, expertly done the first time, make sure it just works. Then you can schedule with me and we can talk about working together. If that is not what you're looking for right now, that's absolutely okay. I hope you got a ton of value. Go implement this. I promise you it will be a massive lever for your business. And if you want to watch another video by me that's sort of similar to this style, then I'm going to put it right here. And that's all for today, guys. So I will see you in the next one. Peace.